Hello YouTube. I hope you are having a fabulous weekend, and March is over. I wasn't ready. Like, March went by too fast. Like, tomorrow is the 31st. So I've been busy, I've been sleepy. I think last weekend, I don't even remember what I did, but yesterday I was running errands. I had to do laundry. The people came in, they had to redo my bathroom because I had a leak, and the maintenance people had to make a hole in it. It was a lot going on. So I was like, you know what? Today I have a free day. Let me finish with my women's history stuff. So I must say that this has been work. Like, it's easy to do a video and just talk from the heart, from what you know. But when you actually start doing research and stuff, even though everything's on Wikipedia and YouTube and you could just watch it, it's work. So putting stuff together, and I was supposed to do a video last week, but I was like, I'ma just do it today. So today I will be discussing prostitution, the history of prostitution, and then I'm gonna separate the video. So in this video, that's what I'm gonna talk about, and then in the next video, I'm gonna talk about my last three women, which is Marian Anderson, Josephine Baker, and Mary McLeod Bethune. And I'm gonna end on that note with my women's history series. I wanted to talk about prostitution today because it's something very common. It's more common than what you realize. You may not know a prostitute personally, but we all know somebody who stripped or did something related to sex work. Because even with strippers, let's admit it, most of them have had sex for money at some point during their stripping season. If they didn't have sex for money, they probably didn't strip for long. But I feel like every stripper from, if they've done it for more than 2 years, they've had sex with at least one client or one customer, whatever you want to call it. And it happens for different reasons, and I'm gonna just share with you why was somebody. You also have, I think I spoke about this in a previous video, there are women who don't have pimps and they just do it. Not all of the women, there's a stereotype that prostitutes, they're all high school dropouts, and no, some of these women actually have careers as nurses and teachers, whatever. They go on a website and that's what they do. There was a woman on OnlyFans that was a teacher, and she was stupid enough to put it on there, and the DOE fired her because that's embarrassing. And she was a mother, she had children, and it was just sad. She did that to herself. And she was a prostitute. She was having sex for money. You have women who, a lot of these Asian women, they work in these spas in New York City, where you can get like a $40 massage, whatever, and they are doing sexual acts for money. I just wanted to share some real quick statistics. Actually, prostitution was legal right on up until 1910. Not just in this country alone. Now, there are countries where prostitution is still legal. Why? Because it's a crime against women. Yes, you do have some women that volunteer and do it, but for the most part, they're forced into it one way or another. I was watching a video on YouTube, very, very educational. It was a woman, she was around my age probably, and she was talking about pimping in the 1970s. That was her video. And once I watched it, I was like, I need to talk about it too, because it's just something that is so important to talk about. So basically, she was talking about how you had Bishop Don Juan, who used to be a actual bishop. And so he stopped being a bishop, and he was a pimp bishop in the church, and then went back to pimping. And you had a lot of pimps in the 70s, and they was looked at as a somebody. Now it's looked down upon, it's frowned upon, whatever. But back in the 1970s, in the black community, a lot of people looked up to drug dealers and pimps because they They made it, a lot of them made it out the hood. Some of them still lived in the hood, but they drove a nice car. Their family was going to, a lot of black families back in the day couldn't afford the simple things like a vacation, whatever. These pimps had that. These pimps were able to have opportunities, and it was a fashionable thing. You got Foxy Brown, and that's another thing I wanted to talk about. The media is responsible for a lot of things. She brought it out, like with 50 Cent, PIMP. Snoop Dogg talked about being a pimp. Like literally, Ice-T was a pimp. You have all these celebrities that actually used to be a pimp, and it was kind of like a celebrated thing in music, hip hop, and then just over the centuries and over the years, it was something that it was frowned upon, but it was still respected, and I do blame the music industry for a lot of things. And I also wanted to talk about the history of lingerie because it ties in. So lingerie came out 3000 BC in Egyptian times. And in the Bible, when you read it, people knew that people were prostitutes by what they had on, right? So if you had on a certain color or a certain whatever in the Bible days, they knew that that was what you did. You were a prostitute. Many of these men that slept with prostitutes, even back in the day, these were politicians, men of blue collar workers. So don't think, for those of you who may not know, men who sleep with prostitutes, most of them are not like crackheads or thugs and stuff. Most of the Johns are people that everyday men. I'm gonna say that again. The reason why, and I'm gonna get into the statistics. A lot of these Johns are your next door neighbor, someone. It could be your teacher, your pastor. They're blue collar workers, sanitation men, police officers. These people, I never knew that it was regular men doing this. I think I told y'all I had a previous boyfriend who he told me his past, and I just couldn't get over that. Even though that was his past before we started dating, I just couldn't get over that because you would stoop so low. But the reality is a lot of men do it, but they're not going to tell you, right? He at least was real enough to tell me. But a lot of men out here do have sex with prostitutes and or strippers, because to me a stripper is the same thing. It's just she may not have sex with a John every single night, the stripper, but nevertheless, you can't convince me that somebody was stripping for 2 to 5 years and they just never had sex for money. I don't believe that. Like at some point you're gonna do it for money. So prostitution was legal until 1910. Congress passed the White Slave Traffic Act, right? So I wanted to talk about Jack the Ripper. Now, Jack the Ripper was a serial killer. They never found out who it was. They claim that now that they know, an article had popped up. So I'm going to do more research on that. Because Jack the Ripper, the suspect, they thought it was a doctor. For the simple fact, this person would kill prostitutes only. And why did he do that? Along with other serial killers? Because prostitutes, even back then, nobody cares about them. Not because they're prostitutes, but because they're women. I'm going to say that again. A lot of people think, because because you have a lot of women that were not prostitutes and they're missing today. So this has nothing to do with occupation, people. This has to do with gender. We are still fighting for gender equality today. And that's why I had to do this Women's History series. So when you listen to the sound of my voice and every woman that I'm talking about and everything that they fought for, we're still fighting today. And that's why history is so important. Your history is all you have. The point of knowing the history of something is so you could understand things. When you see racism going on, that's nothing new. That's been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. So Jack the Ripper, we think he's a doctor because he would take out their uteruses, he would take out their intestinal organs. So it's like, well, how would he know? I don't even know where my uterus is. I can't point to it and, know exactly. This person knew how to cut and take it out. He would take out their intestines and put it on their shoulder. Like, whoever was doing this was not just a monster, but he obviously had some type of medical knowledge. And back in those days, there was no taking out loans to go to school. You either had the money or you didn't. So this person obviously had wealth to go to school to be a doctor. And this person was a doctor, had to be a doctor. There's no way that they wasn't. Because how he going to know, where to cut, right? So Samuel Little was the most prolific, and yes, he's a black man, Samuel Little. I actually did a paper on him, and my ex had put me on to him, and I was like, what? American black man, and he killed prostitutes. All of his victims were prostitutes. He started killing them from 1975, and he finally got caught in like 2021 or 20 or whatever, and he got sentenced to jail and everything. But look how long it took. He was killing prostitutes, and he admitted it. They asked him, well, what was so fascinating about the prostitutes? He said he knew that no one would care about them. No one would look for them. And a lot of women who become street prostitutes, that's another thing. There's different types of prostitution, folks. So street prostitution is usually someone who, they might be foreign to the country or state, and a man comes along and says, oh, I'll take care of you. It goes from I'll take care of you to then he turns them into prostitutes. For the most part, a lot of people just don't do it just to do it. Some women, yes, because you have a whole website now that women are voluntarily doing this, which I can't imagine why. That's pretty sad. But street prostitutes are normally forced to do it, right? They are not doing it because they just want the extra money. It's a human trafficking thing. What is human trafficking? When you force a group of people against their will to sell their bodies for sex, right? So Samuel Little, he killed only prostitutes, right? He had like over 70 victims that they know about, but it probably was in the hundreds, because we talking 1975 into the 2020s, so that's a really long time to be killing folks. It's really sad. R. Kelly is in jail right now because of human trafficking. What is an example of human trafficking that people don't know about? If you, a man, if you have a woman who flies from another state, you pay for her plane ticket, and you're paying her for sex, though it may be consensual, she might agree to it. Do you not know that in the court of law, if she gets up on that stand and says you forced her to do it and she felt like you pressured her, that is considered human trafficking? Yes, I'm surprised as well too. So you better watch out for that. You better make sure you're in a relationship. With this casual sex thing, everybody wants to, and there's nothing wrong with it, but you have to be careful with some women. They know the law and they'll use it against you. So with R. Kelly and his crimes, some of them, yes, he's guilty, but other things, they was dragging it. Like, come on. Like, but I just wanted to say that PS announcement for the fellas. Be careful with flying women in from other states. Be careful with even selling a woman money after sex. You may think, oh, I'm just being a nice guy. But she could get up on that court stand and say, I was forced to do that. And now they have receipts of you paying for sex, which is considered human trafficking. Yeah, it's crazy. So you got to be careful with that, fellas. Politicians have been involved with prostitution, human trafficking, such as Donald Trump. I don't know the full details, but I did hear about some type of porn star that he was dealing with, and it's just really sad. But I just had to say it again. I said it before and I had to say it again. That these men that are, because, you know, you think about it, like, who the hell is fucking these prostitutes? Regular, everyday men. Okay, Keisha Cole, we all know who Keisha Cole is, right? Her mom was a drug addict, and to pay for her habit, she became a prostitute, right? So she didn't even know who Keisha Cole's father was. She thought he was a white guy. Come to find out, on Celebrity Paternity Court, they found out it was a black man. He was just light-skinned. He was a blue-collar worker. He was a working man who had sex with Keisha Cole's mom, and Keisha Cole came out of that, you know. So growing up as a kid, you always see crackheads with a bunch of kids. Who's fucking them? Regular men. And that's the scary part. And regular men, and when I say regular men, police officers, sanitation workers, teachers, teacher aides, like just a man. And then even like, you have some men that go to strip clubs a lot, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But do you really think that they're just getting lap dances? Do you really think that's all that's going on? You don't think that at some point he's going to the champagne room to get his rocks off? Like, really think about that. And it's an addiction. It starts off with porn. Porn turns into the fantasy of being with a stripper every night. Then it's like, you know what? I wonder what her insides feel like. It's a progression. And then it becomes an addiction for some men. They start having sex with these strippers or prostitutes to the point they don't even want to have sex with a real woman. Or when they start having sex with a real woman, they want to treat her like she's a prostitute. And I wanted to briefly talk about Jimmy Swaggart. Jimmy Swaggart, I learned about him. My father used to always talk about him. So he was a pastor who they found out he was having sex with prostitutes, and he wanted his wife to dress up as a prostitute. The scripture says that that is a sin. If you want your wife to dress up like a prostitute, that is a sin. There's nothing wrong with being sexy. And I'm going to get into the lingerie history. I had to, your girl had to do the history of lingerie. Like I said, there were garments that women wore to attract a man. They knew, in the Bible days, they knew, okay, that's a prostitute. Just like with right now. Sometimes you can't tell because the woman might be dressed to go to the club, but obviously if it's like 2 PM and she's just walking up and down the street, she's a prostitute, right? Especially when they have, some of them wear the see-through clothes where you can see their nipples and stuff. You can kind of tell. If you go on Pennsylvania Avenue in East New York, you still have prostitutes, which I didn't know until I saw it on a YouTube video. So you have that. The United States gets $14 billion for prostitution. I'm going to say that again. The United States generates $14 billion for prostitution. Nevada is the only legal state to have prostitutes, but I don't think it's just Nevada. I think it's other places too. Between 70 and 80,000 get arrested for prostitution. And you guessed it, who's getting arrested? The women. Only 10% of Johns. What is a John? A man who pays for sex, right? To a prostitute. Only 10% of Johns get arrested. They're not going to arrest them because it's too much money being made. Think about it, right? I always thought about that. It's like, why is it always the prostitutes getting arrested? You have to understand that crime is a business. I don't care what nobody says. They could stop crime tomorrow, but why do that? Everybody making money, from the police officer to the defense attorney, to the lawyer, to the judge, to the court officer. Everybody's making money. If you stop crime, you don't have jobs. You don't have $14 billion to spend on prostitution. You know what I'm saying? It's all a business when you really think about it. Because why the hell is it only 10% of Johns getting arrested? And men who are honest enough to tell you, yeah, I slept with a prostitute in my lifetime, they never got arrested for it. But that prostitute that they slept with, she's been arrested at least 3 or 4 times in her lifetime or more. A pimp almost never gets arrested for pimping. Drug dealers, Now they go to jail and stuff like that. But pimps never, you will never see a man in jail for pimping unless if it's on the Diddy level. Diddy, he definitely had a human traffic thing. Like, that was just so obvious, because how the hell did he make so much money? Where did the money come from? Nobody wears Sean John. Even back then, his restaurants had shut down. Justin's, I remember going there as a kid for my 14th birthday. Nobody was really going there like that. So the fact that the truth is coming out on how he made his money is very believable, because it wasn't from his groups. Danny Kane, he wasn't making no money off of them. They was one-hit wonders. Faith and Kim left him. Biggie died. So all this money he was making, nobody stopped to think, how the hell was he making all this money? Same thing with Jay-Z. How the hell is he making all his money? Stop and think about all the celebrities that's making all this money, and we don't know where it's coming from. Even Rihanna. I love Rihanna. But how the hell are you a billionaire from makeup? Makeup alone? The truth will set you free, and the truth will come out if she's involved in something. Hopefully not. But you gotta stop and think. Now, Oprah, we know where her money is coming from. Tyler Perry, we know where his money is coming from. Tyler Perry is constantly doing movies. People watch his movies. I understand why he's a billionaire. But you gotta stop and think about these other billionaires, white or black. It's not about race. Where the hell is the money coming from? Human trafficking is more popular than you think. So, yes. 70 to 80,000 get arrested for prostitution, but never the jumbo or the pimp, because of lack of caring about women. It goes back to the hatred of women. It goes back to the Bible days of the woman that was caught in adultery. First of all, how you know somebody is committing adultery? Which means you was watching her. Now, my father, we always joke about it. They probably was messing with her. Probably. Women didn't have rights back then. So they probably was messing with her. She probably said no. And then they want to bring her to Jesus. Jesus is not dumb. He was like, whoever, he knew. That's why they didn't like Jesus, because Jesus kept it real. He was like, whoever don't have sin, cast the first stone. Because he knew that they were sleeping with her. Because how, even back then, how do you know that the man she's having sex with is not her husband? First of all, that means that they were either watching her or having sex with her too. So Jesus already knew what it was when they brought her to Jesus. Like, we call her an adultery. Why y'all in her business? First of all, how you even know that why are you in her window? How do they even but I use that as an example because it's bashing women. It's trying to, let's stone her. And that's just like with most people that they strippers and prostitutes, they just hate on them. And it's like, oh, put her in jail. What about the man who is engaging? What about the John? And it's the same thing with the woman in adultery. You're gonna stone her. Where's the man she was having sex with? Shouldn't he be stoned as well? And that's why Jesus said what he said. He who have the first stone, go ahead and throw it. Jesus wasn't dumb. He knew what time it was. But men that are participant in this are important in the community. So like I stated before, these are not bums or drug dealers. These are prominent men who have sex with prostitutes from back then and even now. And that's why they don't really put a stop to it, because they know it's regular men doing it. Some of them are powerful men. Some of them are, especially with the sex trafficking thing. These are not poor men that's conducting sex trafficking. These are people with wealth. And they're not going to stop it because it's too much money involved. So, lingerie came from Egypt, which I did not know. I think I stated in a previous video it came from Europe. No, lingerie came from Egypt, not Europe. Now, the way we wear bras and stuff like that, yes, that came from Europe, which is the modern lingerie. But the original idea of lingerie, the whole purpose was to seduce a man. There is nothing wrong with wearing lingerie, but you have to understand the history of things, right? So lingerie came from Egypt 3000 BC. Modern lingerie came from Europe in 1910 for all women. So the idea of modern lingerie came to, well, all women could be sexy, right? Not just prostitutes. So the idea of the modern negligee or lingerie came from Europe, the modern sense of things, because before 1910, lingerie was known to be for prostitutes. Food for thought. Yeah. A lot of people don't think and realize that. They just, oh, it's sexy, I'm gonna wear it. But the idea of lingerie came from prostitution. The whole purpose was to look attractive for your client, right? So they made these garments in Egypt to be attractive to the client, right? So, yeah. And I don't want to sound like a PSA commercial, but if you see something, say something. Any woman on the side of my voice, if you're doing it, there's another option. There's always another option. There's women that's nurses and doctors and women from different backgrounds that are doing it now. They have something called OnlyFans, and it's going on, and they feel like that's more of a safer way than working for a pimp. But either way, it's not safe. Your body is the temple, and you have to remember with soul ties. So you have a lot of women with mental illness and everything going on because of the men that they sleep with. Like, you have to be conscious of who you open your legs to. You're not a piece of meat or a toilet, right? You're more than that. And those are my thoughts.